Hello, I'm Terri Matthews, Director of Town+Gown. It's a citywide research program resident at the New York City Department of Design and Construction.
And I'm Deborah Gans. I'm representing the Gown Advisory Council. I'm president of it this year, so I'm here as Terri's sidekick. We're going to take you through the mission and the structure and also the various platforms that Town+Gown has at least 3, if not more, ways of encouraging and supporting research partnerships. So what is Town+Gown? As Terri said, it is a university community partnership that brings together academics and practitioners. It's specifically designed for research around the built environment. And it's action research with academics and practitioners as equals in knowledge creation. And what that means basically, is that the academics do not perform research projects on agencies and agency subjects. Rather, the agencies are part of the collaboration. They're the ones who actually create the research questions, such that those questions can help the agency solve what Terri calls wicked problems and systemic issues, and create evidence that will support the agency in their effort to create new policy or to fix some form of practice within the agency. So that, in sum, the mission is to increase applied built environment research and evidence-based analysis. Now, it uses New York as a laboratory. It's not that it won't look at other cities for best practices or that these practices, the research can't be generalized, but it's specifically intended to help inform and support change in our local policy and practice. So who are the Gown part? Under the master contract, which Terri will describe, it's 15 academic partners, and that we are pre-qualified as vendors to apply for the funded platform of Town+Gown, a series of RFPs. But it can also engage a larger general group of academic institutions as part of our unfunded platforms, the kind of experiential learning where we have coursework performed by students in relation to these problems. And then Town, Terri likes to say, is not Gown. It's the public sector. It's New York City agencies. It's also, under our contract, state agencies. And it also can include private sector practitioners who want to partner and help fund one of these agency-driven research projects. For example, Con Ed and National Grid are now involved in partnering on a project that will help us measure our progress in relationship to our 2080 energy goals.
Hello. So let me just say the built environment. It's a big door, and you can drive almost anything through it. It's not, it started as sort of a construction agency working group. That's the original many, many years ago. Built environment has many disciplines, but pretty much if it isn't metaphysical, we can probably do it. Economics, technology, management, design, engineering, architecture, geography, which is planning, and then action research is a collaborative inquiry where the research is done, not just on its own account. It's intended to lead to action, and it's a cycle. You research, you reflect, you act. And sometimes it takes several, academic cycles to get to action, but we wanted to put pictures in our presentation, so there you go.
Okay. So Town+Gown is sponsored and lodged within the city, specifically within the Department of Design and Construction, although it can serve any city agencies. This slide kind of notes the advantages of that kind of structure. That comes with the instigation for the research coming from the city. First of all, it establishes the operational value of research. Not that people in government don't value research or don't want it done, but their days are too busy and their budgets are too small. So this creates that value. It operates across internal government divides to capture and present complex issues. What this really means is that it encourages academic institutions to think more interdisciplinarily, and it encourages government to be a little bit less siloed amongst its departments within an agency or between agencies. And one project I can think of as an example is a current DEP water project we're doing, where the analytics are about the quantities of wastewater, but there's also a social impact. How is it affecting different neighborhoods in terms of that wastewater and pollution? So immediately it required different parts of the academic institution to come together around this question, and then it immediately starts engaging, do you have to engage city planning? Do you have to go to a community board? Do you have to go outside DEP per se and start engaging these different city players? And you were saying that one of the previous presentations also seemed to be
for example, the education and
Right.
the property tax.
Right.
And the whole first panel.
Right.
At the city, it would be the Department of Education, but it would also be the Department of Finance. I mean, it's a multi-agency inquiry where you can't look at the issue without bringing in the whole
Right.
whole.
Right, and the next point on the slide spoke to that presentation as well, where everybody was asking what the policy implications for that wonderful study was, and everybody was saying, well, we don't know what the policy implication, how we can change policy yet with your presentation about tax and education. But because here the question and the research is starting with the agency, the pipeline from that research to evidence-based policy change is made easier. So a couple of other advantages are, important qualities are the ability to make really good use of all the data sets that go untapped. It gives academic institutions great access to that data, plus it gives the city the ability to kind of capture academic data and integrate it with the city data sets. And another point is that it transfers across administrations. Sometimes when you have a change in political administration, the administration starts asking different questions, but in this case, the knowledge is not lost because it's also lodged within the academic institution. And then last point, in the slightly small typeface, is that it saves the city a lot of money because you don't have to build a laboratory or hire the researchers. You can make use of those structures that are already in place. So the mechanisms for doing all this are the faculty-directed research, which the city helps pay for, and the experiential learning component, which is pro bono for the academic institution. So to keep moving. So who is Gown right now under the master contract? These are all the schools. I think the takeaway here is they're not all in New York. There's Drexel and Tufts, as well as some upstate schools, and they are, Drexel just won an RFP, so, and who is Town? These are all the agencies that have participated so far, and there's interest from others. Am I supposed to do this too?
Well,
Well,
Hold on.
or you-
We have you doing this one.
Okay,
What do you want?
so, no, it's fine, I'll just do it. So what do we do? These are some of the RFPs that are funded that have taken place.
These are all the awarded ones.
These are all the awarded ones.
These are the ones that have been released.
And we already talked about the agencies. I think the takeaway from this slide is the spread of projects. We have equity in design of public buildings, which was architecture and planning, but we have the design of a BQE triple cantilever structure, and then infrastructure projects, risk assessments, which are heavy data-driven projects. So the spectrum is quite wide.
Aha. Oh, metrics. See, I'm big on the little big pictures that are, I thought it would be helpful. It's growing. Agencies are increasing their use. The number of RFPs are going up, and the total amount per academic year is going up, which is kind of nice. So in agencies, there's a pipeline. I mean, I can't put the pipeline in because it hasn't been released yet, but there's a lot of interest. We have some new agencies coming on board. So that's pretty much the metrics. Okay, so people always ask, so what, we say we're action. So they say, well, where's the action? And, faculty-directed research, action doesn't happen right away. But the BQE charrette, which was, the BQE used to be it was a state project. They did a bunch of EISs, and then they decided, no, city, you're going to do that. So DOT ended up getting New York NYU Tandon to do what they called a charrette, to go through this. I think there were 6 alternatives that the state had investigated, and it was just a nice way for the city to get some engineering expertise, and it was a 2-day event, and they had a report, and I'm pretty sure that kind of conversation helped them decide their plan of action. We did 4 at the agency Town+Gown is working at. There were 4 research projects in the design field that were to support new manuals, which were written but have not been released yet. And Pratt had done 2 of them, one on building information modeling to move it from the design phase into construction, and the other one was equity in design. And then the wind, I keep forgetting, at the city, everybody knows what the wind study is, but when Sandy hit, everybody was like really afraid of things falling off of buildings, so the city council enacted a law and said, Department of Buildings, you must study this because we want to be ready for the next one. And so Department of Buildings used the master contract, and that one they got CUNY, City College, to do the wind study. And the public-facing document is expected to be released in the spring. Okay. Okay. Oh, now this is, okay, so I'm a lawyer. When I was at the City Hall, procurement reported to me. And so I'm speaking to the people in government. This is the master contract. It's got a 10-year term, which is necessary for academics. You want to know that you've got this steady stream of research coming in. It's got a long term, and it has one option for a 5-year renewal. So it creates some kind of stability. We were able to, one of the innovative procurement features, it's in the city, it's called negotiated acquisition. So we were able to start working with some of the schools when we were drafting the contract. And the city has a standard contract with intellectual property provisions that every school hates. So we ended up changing intellectual property so it suited the academics, which basically meant the default is they can publish. They don't need prior consent, but they do need to involve the city agency as a peer, and that's part of the action research model. The practitioner is equal to the academic and knowledge creation. When it comes to future products, the universities, there's no option to get out of that. It's their intellectual property. We get a royalty-free license, Cost accounting was based on the National Science Foundation grant standards, percent of, I forget, I'm sorry, and I'm certainly not going to remember it now, but it's all the kinds of cost accounting that universities are used to. We didn't make it like consultant work because they're very, very different. We permit the universities to collaborate. Oh, God, no, really? Oh, shit. Anyway, okay, so you can read this in your spare time, but the master contract makes for very easy procurement. All the stuff is in the master, and when you're ready to do a research program, a project, you do your scope, you get a proposal, you evaluate them, and you issue the task order. You don't have to do a standalone RFP. Better relationship?
Yeah.
What do we do? Should we stop? Or just keep going?
Just 2 minutes, we're going to shorten this.
We're going to shorten it, okay.
So we basically went through a lot of why this is a good idea. The only other thing to add is that the consortium, we can, an academic partner can use Town or Town+Gown to leverage their grant proposals for things like the NSF. And then the other 2 platforms, you probably, they're a little less pertinent to
Right.
this group.
This is the free stuff. We
But
can
this
talk about that.
is, our schools really enjoy having our students work with the agencies on various projects. The results are great, and you can get them online there
Right.
in these beautifully designed volumes, 1 through 7.
And studios, workshops, capstones,
Yeah.
PhDs, we've had a couple of those, master's thesis.
And these are all the subjects.
Those are examples.
See, I told you we could finish this up.
Yeah, okay, okay, this is, okay, I have to do this. So we do Town+Gown. This master contract is for all city agencies. It's also written so that the state and the state agencies and their controlled entities, like for example DASNY, they can use this contract to do research. It's been a little hard trying to convince them because, it's the state and they don't take my calls. So that's just something some of you ought to think about. So you can get paid for the research that you do. But this is we believe this is a replicable model. New York is a big place, as you can see, it's all those ESDC regions. We believe that what works for New York City, because New York City is basically 5 counties. I mean, it's just a big city. But we believe this is replicable, in localities with, a geographic kind of identification with clusters of academic institutions. And we all know that local governments can collaborate together. This would be a I put the GML references here. It would be a multi-agency procurement. It's not a shared services, but I believe under local, on GML, you could create a master contract for, I don't know, the capital region. You could create one, where is Syracuse? Central, we've been talking to people at Syracuse, and I've also been talking to people in the North Country, because there is interest in this model, because I've been getting it, and we believe that there could be more of these. So that was kind of the takeaway. That's why we came up here.